Okay, so I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I really didn't want to do this video, but I did ask what you guys thought on the topic, and I got some pretty interesting feedback, so it's just right I do the thing. So in today's video, we're going to be looking into who would win, who's just overall more powerful in the fight between Fuegoleon, a lover of both cats and large fiery reptiles, and Nozel, a lover of everything silver and hair braids, both of which happen to be elite Maginite captains of their respective Maginite squads and possess immense magic might. You know, just for those who didn't know. So make sure to leave a comment down below who you have winning this elemental clash of rival captains, and feel free to not hold back on any you guys have for me, because this video is going to be something. With all that said, into the video. Now, like I said earlier, I did run both a YouTube and Twitter poll at Basically Anime, you know, for the mandatory plug, and you see for yourselves how that went. And I never really liked the idea of me doing a versus video because, to be honest, I never really wanted the heat I could get in the comments for whoever had winning. But then I remembered I was Basically Anime, and I was able to rank all the Maginite captains in a recent video, another slick plug right there, and that went well. And I guess it was actually that video in the comments on Nozel that made me do this video, so we're gonna go ahead and try to unpack this one. Okay, so before we get into the actual arguments for the fight, I'm going to have to establish some conditions or rules per se for the video, because for all we know, Nozel and Fuegoleon could be going straight hands in boxing. And I think we all know who would win that, but I digress. Rule number 1. No potential or possible or foreshadowed or future powers are going to be utilized. And I'm looking at you, Fuegoleon fans. Practically no hypothetical fire salamander spirit dive y'all seem to think Fuegoleon has in his bag, or mercury armor for Nozel. Basically nothing we haven't seen in the anime or the manga, regardless if it's a general consensus that Fuegoleon or Nozel has access to said ability. If we haven't seen them use it, it doesn't count and I won't reference it. Speaking of referencing, rule number 2 is that most of the source material I'm going to be using will be coming straight from the anime, including anime canon, because this isn't Boruto we're talking about, as well as in the manga. I might also use a statement or two from the guidebooks, but on that I will admit, even though I consider myself, you know, to be a pretty strong fan of Black Clover, even I haven't read a single page of any guidebook or light novel, and don't you dare look at me like that because you probably haven't read it too. But if I happen to come upon a statement from said source material while doing research, I may use it. Just saying this so you don't get mad when your best argument for your character is in a guidebook. Okay, I probably didn't read it. Rule number 3, we will not be taking surroundings into consideration. So picture them fighting in a blank void space, or better yet, Dorothy's dream world, and also both opponents are bloodlusted. Anyway, for the last rule, please don't expect me to go big brain and calculate power scaling and stuff. Now, I've always said I'm a casual when it comes to power scaling, and I just happen to be pretty good, or at least I think I'm good, considering you are watching the casual power scaler, using my own style of ranking or debating anything power-wise, which I like to call common sense feats. Common sense and feats. If Fuegoleon is able to pick up and punch a rock, obviously bigger than the rock that Nozel can pick up, then we can conclude in that instance, Fuegoleon is physically stronger than Nozel. See what I did there? I applied common sense with feats, so expect that type of argumentative or debating style in this video. I'm just saying that so you don't expect me to scale a percentage of Magicalist power to a mid-ranking level of their ability and quantify that with Fuegoleon's max fire temperature output, and then find out how that would work with Nozel's destructive capability.
Bruh, what is that?
Yeah, we're just not doing that. But with all of that out of the way, into Fuegoleon vs Nozel. For the benefit of those who may not know the skill set of our two combatants, here it is. Fuegoleon is an immensely powerful magic knight who possesses fire magic, along with an arm made of fire and the fire spirit salamander. And Nozel is also a powerful captain who possesses the versatile mercury magic and a pretty snazzy hair braid. Now, when it comes to these two strengths in magic might, I've always, or at least before the time skip in Spade Arc, thought that they were always meant to be relative to each other. With Fuegoleon spending most of his time in battle style on simply overpowering his enemies with firepower, of course a lot of his strength in magic was heavily showcased in his fights, while Nozel fights in a more precise and calculated manner that might not highlight his sheer magic might as much as Fuegoleon's is, but is still able to contend with the same opponents that Fuegoleon can. I mean, if we just take a look at the Nozel vs Dark Partry and Magicula fight, it's obvious that they scale higher than him in power, but yet he is still able to contend and defeat them. So before the Spade Arc, I summarize it to this: if Fuegoleon and Nozel were to fight 10 times, Fuegoleon would win at least 6 out of 10 times. So hey, I will admit I did fall prey to the overwhelming Fuegoleon hype within the Black Clover fandom. But in my defense, I mean, it was either Fuegoleon, who has an arm made out of fire and a personal fire dragon spirit to go with it, and has one-shot literally everyone in his face, or Nozel, who has mercury magic and a hair braid. But to give credit to Nozel and his versatility, I was also of the mind if they were to fight 10 times, one fight per week for 10 weeks, I think Nozel will quickly adapt with his preciseness and versatility and end up beating Fuegoleon at least 6 out of 10 times. Also, we won't be too crazy on incorporating prep time, considering that these two have been rival for years and of course sparred against each other one or maybe even more times, so they would already come into the fight knowing each other's skill sets and what to do. And no matter how I or we felt about a pre-time skip fight between the two, we gotta admit, Nozel really shut up his critics and stepped up in the Space Kingdom arc, which is probably why this video is even happening. Now for the actual video and fights, I'll be setting out two different arguments, one for Nozel and for Fuegoleon each. And whichever argument seems more plausible and likely will be the winning argument, and will decide Nozel versus Fuegoleon's winner. Now for Fuegoleon, his biggest advantage and argument revolves around his battle tactics and his short range attacks, specifically his overwhelming punches, which seem to be the strongest attacks in his arsenal. As we see when he's repeatedly able to one-shot Kaiser with one punch, although that did take him using his tactics to create that opening, and as we saw in the Lucifer fight, where all the captains were going all out, he chooses to go for a short range attack in union with Mereoleona and the Fire Spirit, which is probably the strongest attack we have seen from him yet. So in order for Fuegoleon to have a good chance of winning this one, he would have to find a way to get close enough to unleash a short range attack, and here's why. This is because of Nozel's versatile defense with Mercury magic, and above all, quick defensive and offensive reflexes, which translates into his attack speed and reaction speed, as he was clearly reacting and defending against Dark Partry's light magic attacks in their fight pre-time skip in the Elf arc. And according to Yuno, said Dark Partry and his magic attacks were faster and stronger than the ones made by Base Partry, who already possessed the fastest magic attribute, which is light magic according to Julius. And even Yuno in his Spirit Dive 1 form and Asta in his Black Asta form were shown unable to react and evade all of Partry's attacks until Nozel saved them. So if Nozel is able to react to the fastest magic attribute, regardless if it was the speed of light or not, because that's a whole nother debate, but said light magic Nozel is easily reacting to is obviously faster than anything Fuegoleon could attempt to Nozel long or mid-range rise. As for Fuegoleon and the Fire Spirit Salamander has been shown to utilize both long and mid-range attacks, specifically Fuegoleon's most powerful non-fireball spell, Solenia, in which he concentrates a huge amount of heat into a powerful beam. But in this case, Nozel could easily block anything Fuegoleon threw at him, and mind you, this was a pre-time skip Nozel that was going against Dark Partry. He, like every other captain, obviously got stronger in the time skip. But even if Nozel may be able to block and defend himself from Fuegoleon's ranged attacks, can he withstand the heat? As Fuegoleon is literally throwing fire at him, so will Nozel's Mercury hold or melt? For this scenario, we can reference the Magic Knight Captain sparring match in episode 151 of the anime, in which Kaiser and Nozel went head-to-head with Fuegoleon. And while I wouldn't typically use this one episode in fight to scale or analyze each captain's relativity to each other or use it as a reference for ranking, because at the end of the day it is an anime only episode, but I feel like it perfectly depicts what would happen if Fuegoleon tried to slam Nozel with ranged fire attacks. And I mean, it's better than scaling the temperature of Fuegoleon and Salamander's max fire output to Nozel's full magic power put into his Mercury's durability, because that's just a bottle full of inconsistencies waiting to happen. Anyway, Nozel was trying to fend off the Fuegoleon Salamander duo and protect his crystal, so he attempted to trap Fuegoleon in the bootleg, low effort Mercury cage, which was easily destroyed by Fuegoleon's spell Solenia. Nozel then goes on to formulate a plan with Kaiser, which involves him using his most powerful and largest spell, at least when it comes to magic prowess and precision, the Silver Star of Execution, the same spell used against Partry in the Elf arc. The Fuegoleon and Salamander duo, trapped in the cage, attempt to escape by launching a huge fireball at it, which turned to be unsuccessful because, and I quote from Fuegoleon, because he being Nozel, is constantly using an immense amount of mana, the cage is instantly repaired. So Fuegoleon, being the master battle tactician he is, and also according to Tabata in a guidebook, considered to be the smartest Magic Knight captain sometime around the pre-time skip Elf arc, formulating a plan which allowed him to escape the cage and embarrass Kaiser, well, for the second time. Fuegoleon, in conjunction with Salamander, began to accumulate a huge amount of firepower, which even shocked Nozel at how hard he was starting to make the environment. The same Nozel who has been Fuegoleon's rival for years, meaning if he was surprised at the heat Fuegoleon was mustering, it probably was Fuegoleon using serious magic might, or at least more than he would on a normal sparring occasion. Anyway, after accumulating enough firepower that enveloped him, the Salamander Spirit, and the cage, Fuegoleon then proceeded to release it all at once, which completely evaporated the body of water they were on top of, which can probably be scaled to a huge lake. Because of the evaporation, a huge blanket of steam covered the surroundings, which allowed Fuegoleon to escape the cage. And as we've seen in the Dog Pachi fight, and a little bit in the Mijektu fight in the manga, usually Nozel can use his cages to defend himself and attack people who try to escape it. But in this case, the steam prevented Nozel from doing that. Anyway, after Fuegoleon then snuck up and one-shotted Kaiser in perfect Fuegoleon fashion by the way, we see the Fire Spirit Salamander was still trapped in the Mercury cage, meaning the same firepower that used to evaporate a huge lake wasn't nearly enough to destroy Nozel's strongest spell. And again, technically this is another feat that happened pre-time skip. So the entire split was to reiterate and showcase how Fuegoleon, who is actually trying, range firepower would hold up with Nozel's Mercury when he is actually trying. It doesn't. If Fuegoleon could have overpowered or melted his way out of the cage without relying or using his surroundings, he would have just done it. But that's not the case. And it's not that Nozel's Mercury is unmeltable, because it clearly is. It's just that he is able to so quickly regenerate it or create more to defend himself. And again, Nozel has been Fuegoleon's rival for years, and it's even hinted in the anime that they are sparred. So knowing Nozel and how he plans and adapts with every encounter, it's very unlikely he loses because his Mercury melts. So Nozel has both the means to react and defend against anything Fuegoleon throws him, and while most of this is based on an anime only episode, it is technically considered anime canon. Now I know you Boruto fans out there like to use that word, meaning the writer of the manga Yuji Tabata had some say in it. So again, Fuegoleon's only chance of winning is getting close enough to hit Nozel with a short range attack, because unless Nozel has some secret Mercury gut or some secret shiny Mercury abs, he's getting absolutely obliterated. But in all the times he has went for an overwhelming punch, it has been when he used his surroundings to his advantage or his opponent was misled or distracted. When fighting Elf Kaiser, he had to use his Fire Spirit to distract Kaiser and get past his pretty solid Vortex defense. Like I mentioned earlier, he used his surrounding to his advantage when he did it against Kaiser the second time. And when he went and used his most powerful attack with Fuegoleon and Salamander against Lucifero, his opponent was distracted by the other Magic Knight captains, unleashing everything they had on him. But in a 1v1 setting with Nozel, he wouldn't be able to rely on his surroundings or distractions, which were cases in which his battle tactics that he is so praised for were used. And in a 1v1 of mine, I just can't factor in surroundings or battle tactics willy-nilly. Meaning, as far as we know and have seen, Fuegoleon would need speed that trumps Nozel's reaction speed, which was faster than the fastest magic attributes to actually get a hit off. And that's him without using surroundings or any distractions. And that's just not happening. And now you may label me as being narrow-minded and possibly pandering towards Nozel. I mean, I'm going to hear it all in the comments, because at the end of the day, Fuegoleon being a spirit host does technically make him more powerful than Nozel. I wholeheartedly stand by that, but this isn't a power scaling video, it is a versus video. And I just haven't seen or know of a speed feat of Fuegoleon that puts him above Nozel's reaction time. And just to fully examine and pan out Fuegoleon's argument, fans love to mention how because Fuegoleon exists and they're relative in all attributes, that makes him stronger than Nozel, and that's literally just grabbing at nothing. Just because we have seen them use joint attacks post time skip like the one against Lucifero and the one used to destroy one of Lucifero's tentacles, this doesn't imply that they're relative at all. I mean, we saw Luck and Magna use a pretty cool joint attack one time against Veto, and I don't know anyone who labeled that duo as relative at that time. And when just comparing and looking at the fighting styles of these two characters, Fuegoleon is known for using his tactics to assess his surroundings and opponent's weaknesses to formulate a battle plan, and that makes him a formidable opponent, I can't lie. But if I'm being honest in this situation, Nozel doesn't really have any weaknesses that Fuegoleon could easily exploit. I mean, after he was trapped in the cage, he literally had to resort to using his surroundings, which included a large lake, to escape. And when analyzing Nozel's fighting style and personality, he's one who likes to plan and adapt to situations. As we clearly see in the Dark Pachi fight, he developed and planned a spell to adapt to Pachi's light magic. And Nozel has been Fuegoleon's rival for years, so of course he would have some sort of plan or loose idea of what to do when facing someone like Fuegoleon. Also, if we take a look into Fuegoleon's early history, in which he got absolutely negged by Patri and lost his arm. When fighting Patri, Yami states how Fuegoleon could never lose to him, in which Patri implies that this is true when it comes to a head-on fight, but in this case he says he had planned for him, the same way Nozel has planned for him. So in conclusion for Fuegoleon, assuming the battle loosely goes like I envision it, Nozel would do his best to isolate the Fire Spirit Salamander from Fuegoleon, seeing as if the two are together, they would probably quickly overwhelm him. And for that, he most likely uses the Silver Star of Execution cage in this scenario, seeing that is his strongest spell. But let's say Fuegoleon, being the smartest captain he is, finds a way out of the cage but without the Salamander, just like in the anime episode. I just don't see a scenario basing off everything we have seen from Fuegoleon in which he gets close enough to Nozel to hit him with an attack. attack. The same Nozel who has the reaction speed to react and defend against the amplified version of the fastest magic attribute, and who isn't just gonna stand there and let Fuegoleon get a punch off. Especially the same Nozel who demolished Magicula's durability in just a few seconds. But we're gonna save that for Nozel's argument. Anyway, for the last of Fuegoleon's argument, I just don't see a scenario in which Fuegoleon wins this as he is, without unlocking some sort of power M such as a Spirit Dive that could increase his speed and strength that lets him get close enough to Nozel. But we also have to examine Nozel's argument and if he has the means to beat Fuegoleon, because all I've proven is that Fuegoleon doesn't have the means to best Nozel in combat. Now for Nozel's argument, we've already established his ability to defend and contend with Fuegoleon, but could he take him down? As if we're still following my scenario in which Nozel trapped Salamander, he still has to find a way to defeat Fuegoleon, who has shown some capacity to defend himself through fire magic, and that was before he got the fire spirit. He would have to attack Fuegoleon with the speed or strength that even Fuegoleon won't be able to defend against. And while you may think, that shouldn't be much of a problem considering what he did against Magicula, a high-ranking devil, it may actually be. And just for those people who are not aware of Nozel vs Magicula and how that all went down, he practically did the equivalent of what an angry kid does in a game of Fortnite. They just spam fire everything they have until something happens. But if we take everything we saw from Nozel in the Spade arc in the fight against Magicula into context, this was Nozel who 1. Hadn't fought anyone, or at least wasn't shown fighting anyone before his encounter with Magicula, meaning he was at full strength and full mana reserves. 2. A Magicula who wasn't nearly at full power due to a partial manifestation, and the power that was showcased from her could probably be scaled to being a third of her true power. And she also spent a large amount of time fighting other magic knights such as Gaja, Luck, Noel, Vril, and Charlotte right before Nozel came. It was actually still regenerating when he pulled up on her. And 3. A huge factor of Nozel winning that encounter was because his magic affinity, Mercury magic, worked really well against blood magic, just like it did against light magic. So no, Nozel can't just low diff and completely obliterate Fuegoleon like he supposedly did against Magicula. But to give him credit for this fight, he was stated in a post-time skip guidebook to have acquired the skills to beat a high-ranking devil such as Magicula. So, could he high diff Fuegoleon? Because even though his attack against Fuegoleon won't be nearly the same skill as the attack against Magicula, because he would have used the Silver Star of Execution to trap the Salamander, which takes a lot of concentration and mana, something he had a lot of against Magicula because like I said, he hadn't faced anyone prior to this encounter. But I also did mention earlier that he would have been bloodlusted against Fuegoleon, just like he was against Magicula. And it wasn't even the sheer amount of Mercury attacks being spammed against Magicula that made the difference in their counter, but I will admit, what character is seeing that and not being a little scared of Nozel? It was one of Nozel's most underrated traits when it comes to his magic attribute, and that is the fact that if Nozel's Mercury gets in your bloodstream, even through the tiniest cut, the wound can prove quickly fatal because of his Mercury's toxicity. And if Nozel were to attack Fuegoleon in the same bloodlusted fashion as he did against Magicula, just look at this one panel as Magicula is literally drowning in Mercury attacks. Are you telling me Fuegoleon isn't getting one cut? Man is probably going to get a million. And his ability to spam attacks and cut Fuegoleon faster than he can react and defend is backed by the fact Nozel is able to react to the fastest magic attribute, meaning he's able to attack in the same speed range. And also, we can't really scale Fuegoleon's speed. Like I said earlier, all the times he's been able to KO someone with a short range, he never did it from a sheer amount of speed, but distraction with his tactics, and he overall just doesn't have many feats to begin with. And if and probably when Fuegoleon's bloodstream is invaded by Nozel's toxic Mercury, it's practically game over, unless he launches some pretty flashy hype Spirit Dive that burns everything around him, or does some crazy willpower move that pretty much sums up Nozel's argument, because we have never seen Fuegoleon exhibit any skill or ability that allows him to detoxify his blood. So for my final scenario for their fight, based on the arguments I put out, Nozel traps the Fire Spirit in his most powerful spell, the Silver Star of Execution, as I have proven and it's been shown he can do. Fuegoleon, who's a master tactician and considered the smartest captain, finds a way out but without the Salamander. Fuegoleon is then forced to go in for an overwhelming short-range attack, but is then quickly overwhelmed by Nozel's bloodlusted Mercury spam, which carries the attack speed higher than the fastest magic attribute. Maybe Fuegoleon overpowers the Mercury spam attack through sheer willpower, I don't know, just to give him credit, but falls prey to the toxicity of the Mercury. Nozel probably high mid or just high diffs. So in conclusion, while I recognize on a power scale Fuegoleon probably ranks higher than Nozel, but in a 1v1 scenario where surroundings aren't a factor, I will take Nozel winning over Fuegoleon for what I've just explained. And just to give some extra context and maybe an excuse for Fuegoleon and his fans, a lot of the feats and information on him is limited. He just doesn't have nearly the same amount of feats or action as Nozel does. And I was really looking for feats to supplement his argument besides his overwhelming attack power, and nothing really came up, mainly because of his lack of screen time, which probably works against him. I mean, he's like an overpowered 10-10, but it is what it is. And yeah, let the outrage in the comments comment. But yeah, this is the end of the video. And did I mention how I really hate making versus videos? Because I really do. But I'm not gonna lie, I didn't enjoy making this one a little bit. I mean, no matter what, someone is ending up unhappy with who I'm winning, and that's literally opposite of what I try to do with my videos. I've always wanted to entertain and leave a positive impact on all my viewers, but in this case, it's literally impossible. So yeah, this might be my last verse debate one, or maybe not, depending on how y'all feel about it. But you already know, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more Black Clover content. Already have 3 more videos I'm thinking about doing, so turn on post notifications so you never miss that. Also make sure to follow my Twitter at BasicallyAnime, and make sure to check out a previous video where I ranked all of the Magic Knight captains. And by all means, feel free to comment what you guys thought on this topic, and who would you have winning this fight. And to be honest, I want all the smoke, so don't hold back. So with all that said, Asta could probably solo your favorite verse by now. Have a nice day.